This episode of Tools for the Future is all about innovation cultures. This is particularly important because to be successful innovating within any organization really depends on the support for innovation within that organization's culture. This episode builds on work that was researched by Cheskin back in 2008 and described in the book I co-wrote with Steve Diller and Daryl Ray called Making Meaning. Later, Steve Diller and I and another author built on this work in our book Blind Spot. The research that Cheskin did almost 8 years ago now into the different innovation cultures that exist identified 5 different kinds of cultures of organizations as innovators. The predominant one were what were called dynamic innovators. And these divisions really come down to how much risk is accepted within an organization and whose responsibility innovation is seen to be. So with dynamic innovators, innovation is supported across the company at the highest levels and in different divisions and processes. There's a great deal of coordination and collaboration between different functional units, and there's an understanding and acceptance of the risk associated with innovation in order to make things happen successfully in the company. Creative innovators are more spontaneous. Successful innovation comes in spurts, while there's support across most of the organization. Really, only about a quarter of the companies out there are well suited to creative leadership. Without a cultural change, most other companies are in for a hard road when it comes to trying to innovate. All people and organizations are capable of innovation and creative leadership, but not without a culture that supports it. Without going into a lot of detail about the other 3 kinds of innovation cultures, suffice it to say that they vary greatly in the amount of risk that's assessed for innovation, the amount of support for innovation or deviation from operational procedures, and very often how much they look at quantitative and qualitative data. In general, most of them don't look at qualitative data at all. I will say that for the last and smallest culture of innovation outsourcers, essentially these are companies incapable of innovating from inside the company. But that's okay. Their strategies are all based on finding innovation and acquiring it from outside the company, whether they purchase companies or they purchase products or they purchase technologies. Basically, these companies are so risk averse that they can't support innovation inside. Now, that's not a problem as long as a company understands what its innovation culture is and adjusts its strategy, its procedures, its understandings accordingly. An innovation outsourcer can be perfectly successful as long as they understand that that's what works for them and they don't assume or try to be, let's say, a creative or dynamic innovator, because those processes won't be successful within their organization. In this way, it's more important for an organization to know itself and its culture than to be any specific type of these cultures. And even within an organization, different departments or teams, individuals or groups may have different cultures as well. It's not limited to just the company itself. In fact, with so much complexity here and so many variables, it almost seems a wonder we can successfully collaborate at all. So where does design thinking live within an organization? One of my favorite books on the subject, which is based on a tremendous amount of research by these 3 authors, is The Catalyst. And what they found was that successful innovators within large companies, so these are intrapreneurs, not entrepreneurs, successful innovators essentially had to employ a variety of behaviors, all of which that could get them fired. This is more or less an indictment about organizational culture and its impacts on innovation. Most companies inhibit innovation without even thinking about it. They don't think that they do, but they do. Their procedures, their rules, and their policies often inadvertently kill any kind of innovative ideas or the development of those ideas over time before they can be developed to a point where they should be shared. If we think of this as a typical organization, often innovation is driven from a specific part of an organization, in this case, maybe product development. What this does is often relegate innovation to sort of just other tactics. It favors incremental innovation and focuses it on features and performance. This may look familiar to you. But when the entire operations division of a company is charged with innovation, it drives operational innovation throughout the division in many different ways. Walmart, for instance, excelled at this, innovating in the way they manufactured, purchased, shipped, stored, and distributed goods. When the responsibility for innovation lives in the marketing or sales division, it often takes on a different feel altogether. It can engage customers well, but often ends up as propaganda rather than real innovation within the company and what it offers. This is the same as with sustainability efforts, where with sustainability, when it lives in the marketing organization, it's often called greenwashing. This is because the directives and the ideas in sustainability are limited to messaging and never collaborate with other parts of the organization that are responsible for operations or new ideas or product development. However, when product development is connected to marketing and customers and supported as part of the company's strategy, a better understanding of customer needs as opposed to just ideas for solutions actually drives better products and services in line with the company's goals and vision. This is the most powerful way to innovate. It's just not easy, and it takes cultural change or the right kind of culture, and it takes coordination. And when innovation is supported from the top, innovation is challenged and supported throughout all of the parts of the organization, including some surprising parts. In this way, everyone is responsible for innovating their operations, which supports innovation in other areas. Ultimately, it should engage to some extent the board, the finance department, and even HR. Legal is particularly important because the legal group of an organization is absolutely risk averse. That's their job. But you can't innovate without risk. So it means you can't just listen to the lawyers verbatim because their job is to eliminate risks as much as possible. And of course, you can't innovate without them. It's important to get the legal team on board with an understanding that some amount of risk is necessary, but to be careful and choosy about what kind of risks and how many risks are engaged in order to innovate. Regardless, if innovation isn't supported at the very top, it's almost always in danger of being canceled. In order to support innovation, every division or group within a company has things that they can do to support innovation, whether it's the marketing group, whether it's operational people, or those in research and development, whether it's those in IT or other forms of technology development, even people in finance and human resources. Perhaps the second most important area, in fact, within an organization that can affect successful innovation is the human resources group. It's particularly important that innovation is recognized and understood by HR so that they can seek, review, and hire employees that can be innovative and work within the culture. In addition, if the incentives and rewards for innovation aren't in line with the goals of innovation, it means that people will shy away from it altogether. So without HR understanding innovation, it's not likely that you'll be terribly successful innovating. And of course, there's design. Much of what I talk about in this and other episodes is focused on design. But designers have a responsibility too to demystify their process, to focus on the company's goals at a strategic level, to help an organization understand the value that designers bring to the process, and to shape the conversation around design about fulfilling the company's goals. I know that's a tall order, but if designers want to have the influence that they think they deserve, or quite frankly, that they do deserve in service of the customer's needs, we need to learn to speak different languages. We need to learn to speak to different concerns in order to make our understandings and insights known to the rest of the organization. That's a tall order. but that's where design thinking leads us. Thank you.